At some point today, before you had time to think about it, your phone was in your hand. You don't remember deciding to pick it up. You looked at the screen, no new notifications, no missed calls, nothing. And for a moment, you just stood there, looking at a screen that had nothing to show you. Then you opened it anyway. Moved through apps, not looking for anything specific, just looking, because it felt like there was something to find. That feeling is what this video is about. The most common explanation for this is that you're just used to your phone. It's a habit, and if someone pushed you further, they might say we're all a little hooked. That is just what smartphones have done to people. That's normal now. That explanation isn't wrong exactly, but it doesn't tell you anything useful, because this happens to people who actively try not to do it. It happens in a specific, repeatable pattern, the same sequence over and over. And whenever something repeats like that, it means something structural is going on underneath. So let's look at what actually is happening. Buried inside your nervous system is something called the orienting reflex. It's involuntary. When your brain detects, or thinks it detects, a potential signal in the environment, your attention snaps towards it before you've consciously registered anything. You've probably noticed this. A sound in another room, movement at the edge of your vision. You were already looking before you decided to look. The phone check is all that. The reflex fires and you're reaching before you've made any decision at all. But the reflex alone doesn't explain the compulsion. For that, you need to understand what happens when you do check. In the 1950s, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner ran a now famous series of experiments on pigeons. He put them in boxes with a lever. When they pressed the lever, they got a food pellet, but not every time. Sometimes it delivered immediately, sometimes after a few presses, sometimes nothing for a while, then two at once. What Skinner found was that unpredictable rewards, variable rewards, trained behavior faster and more durably than predictable ones. The pigeons started pressing the lever compulsively. They couldn't stop even when the pellets stopped coming. Your phone is a lever, and the reward, a new message, something interesting in the feed, a notification you hadn't seen, is variable. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. And that unpredictability is exactly what makes the behavior stick. But here's where it gets stranger. In 2012, Dr. Michael Rothberg published a study on what he called phantom vibration syndrome. He surveyed hospital staff and found that roughly 68% of them had experienced the physical sensation of their phone vibrating against their leg when it hadn't. The brain had started anticipating the signal so intensely that it began generating the sensation on its own. Most people assume this only happens with vibration. It doesn't. The phantom urge, the felt sense that something requires your attention right now, doesn't need a sound or a buzz. It can arrive as nothing more than a sudden, sourceless pull. And before you've processed it, you're already reaching. Here's what makes this more than a quirk of neuroscience. Someone built a system around it. The notification is the obvious part. A badge, a buzz, a banner designed to trigger the orienting reflex deliberately. But the more powerful design decision isn't the notification. It's what happens after the phantom urge fires and you're already inside the app. In 2006, a designer named Asa Raskin was working at Mozilla when he invented infinite scroll, the mechanic where a feed never ends. It just keeps loading as you move through it. He has since said publicly that he regrets it. His estimate, 200,000 hours of human attention lost every single day because he removed the natural stopping point. Before infinite scroll, you would reach the bottom of a page. That moment of friction, however small, was enough for the brain to complete the loop and stop. Infinite scroll eliminated it. And the feed is never empty. There's always something new, which means the brain's search loop, the one that fired when you pick up the phone, never gets to resolve it. You look, you find something, the reflex is rewarded, so it fires more often, and over time, the brain stops waiting for an actual signal and starts generating the urge on its own. This isn't a side effect. In 2017, Sean Parker, one of Facebook's founding presidents, said it plainly. How do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, spent years documenting how this works from the inside and has been public about it ever since. The techniques are real, named, and deliberate. The phantom urge is your brain doing what brains do. The always full feed is a design decision. Put them together and you have a system where checking is always rewarded, which means the urge to check never weakens, it strengthens. Knowing this doesn't automatically fix it. The problem with trying to just stop is timing. By the time you think, I should put this down, you're already holding it. The reflex fired, you checked, you found something, and now you're deciding whether to keep scrolling. That's a fighting loop that has already been completed. The decision arrives too late. You can't interrupt a pattern at the end of the pattern. The brain encoded a sequence: signal, check, reward. A decision made after the reward doesn't touch the encoding. It just creates an internal friction that fades the next time the urge fires, which is actually useful because it tells you exactly where the loop can be broken. The interventions with the most evidence behind them share the same logic. They interrupt before the loop starts. There are 5 of them, and they work precisely because none of them ask you to resist the urge. They make the urge irrelevant. The first is distance. Keep your phone in another room. Not on the desk, not face down, in your pocket, in another room. This sounds obvious, but the research is striking. Researchers at the University of Texas at Austin found that the mere presence of a smartphone on a desk, even face down and silent, measurably reduced available cognitive capacity. You were spending mental resources not checking it. Remove the phone from the room entirely and those resources come back. Distance is the only intervention that works before the reflex can even fire. The second is notification batching. Instead of checking reactively every time the urge fires, you check on a fixed schedule. 3 times a day, once an hour, whatever is realistic for you. This retrains the variable reward schedule directly. The brain learns to expect a reward at predictable intervals, and the compulsive quality of the behavior weakens because the unpredictability that was driving it is gone. The third is grayscale. Switch your phone display to grayscale. This sounds like it shouldn't matter. It does. A significant part of what makes feed compelling is to move through colors. The reds, the bright thumbnails, the high contrast design. A gray screen is genuinely less rewarding to look at. The loop can still run, but the payoff is smaller, and over time, that matters more than you'd expect. The fourth is app friction. Log out of social apps after each use. Bury them several folders deep. The automatic check depends on the action being nearly zero cost. Any added friction is enough to break the sequence because now you have to make a deliberate choice. And the autopilot can't make a deliberate choice. A small obstacle is all it takes. The fifth one seems almost too simple. Give your hands something else to find. A pen, a notebook, something physical nearby. The reaching behavior is partially motor. The hand moves before the mind decides. Redirecting it to something tactile, something real, is enough to intercept the sequence before it completes. It works because you're not fighting the reflex, you're just pointing it somewhere else. None of these are permanent cures. The reflex isn't going anywhere. Your brain will keep scanning for signals because that's what it was built to do. But the feed will always be full. The app will always have something new. The system was designed so that every time you pick up your phone and look at the screen, there's a reason to stay. Just like there was today when you found yourself holding it before you decided to. The only way out is to make checking harder than not checking. Not through willpower applied after the fact. Through structure, put in place before the moment arrives. And then, slowly, the urge quiets. Not because something was broken in you and you fixed it. Because you stopped building the habit that the design was trying to build for you.